Okay. Hey there, and welcome to Temporary Locals.
I'm Jared.
And I'm Megan. We are a travel-loving couple who somehow always end up feeling like locals wherever we go. From small town streets to some of the world's most iconic wonders, we share our stories, hidden gems, occasional history or true crime that shaped the places that we've actually been. So if you're into travel, storytelling, and a little bit of mystery, then you are in the right place, and we would love it if you would subscribe and join us for the ride. This week, we're going to be taking you to Japan with our special guest, Marsh Deane, who is a photographer and adventurer. But before we get into that, we have a current event to talk about.
We do, finally. And they found, was it
Signs of microbial life.
microbial life
Essentially.
on Mars? That's
Yeah.
right. I was trying to think of the word. So yeah, they found life on Mars. What do you think of that?
That's wild.
Yeah, incredible.
I dug into it a little bit, and it's like fossils of the chemicals left behind by microbial life.
Yeah.
So it's like, but it is signs of life,
Yeah.
which is what matters.
Yeah, it's a technicality, but we'll take it.
Yeah, we'll take the W.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So yeah,
Yeah, very cool.
we're here with Marsh Deane, and if you want to give everybody an introduction of yourself and kind of let everybody know who you are.
So yes, my name is Marsh Deane. I grew up in coastal South Carolina in some really beautiful places that have kind of shaped what I do. I'm a photographer by trade, but I do a little teaching on the side and a lot of adventuring in the free time, and I try to share the adventures and the places and the people and the stories that I find important. I try to share that with others. I'm a Facebooker. I'm a millennial. I am on YouTube as Adventures with Marsh, and so you can listen to me ramble there.
Very nice. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, thanks for having us. I don't know if we mentioned, but we're on location
Yeah,
At
we
the-
did not mention.
at Marsh Studios.
Yep. We packed up all our podcast gear and
Yeah.
we're adapting.
Yes, we are surrounded by old bottles and shark's teeth and artifacts and alligator skull, and
It's a sight to see,
yeah,
for sure.
It's my museum.
Yes, it is like a little museum, and there's a lot of history here. And even just from talking to you, you are a wealth of knowledge when it comes to ancient history, and particularly in this area. So,
Yeah, I try to know as much as I can about the place that I grew up.
right.
But when we go elsewhere, it's figuring it out along the way, as we'll find out when we talk about Tokyo and
Yep.
Japan.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, earlier today, and little, I guess, preview, we'll have a second episode with Marsh talking about all of our adventures that we did today. But today, Jared walked up to me and said something like along the lines of like, "Man, he knows a lot," and I was like, "Yeah, he's like an encyclopedia, like like the Marsh."
A little bit of the
Marsh-
tism,
Yeah.
but I'm certainly clueless in many other aspects of life. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's always nice when you see that like passion ignite in people, and they just you can just tell that they're passionate, and it's nice, and I enjoy listening to people when they get into that like groove.
I'm sure that's what makes you a good teacher as well. You know, there's nothing worse than being in school and having educators that aren't really passionate about what they're teaching. So,
Yeah, and I'm blessed. It's and I could say likewise with y'all with this podcast that y'all do. It is a blessing when you can find an avenue in life that kind of takes you through your passions, and whether it's career or in your free time, having either or is really blessed, and it drives you forward and lets you build and learn more and become more passionate, and it all builds on itself. So.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed listening to y'all. I've been listening to y'all a lot. and
well, thank you.
It's a great break from the drama and the politics of the modern day.
Right.
And it's easy to get caught up in that. And so it's good to have a nice little, almost ASMR travel podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. And like just talking about like learning stuff, if you would ask me like a few months ago what an audio interface is, wouldn't have been able to tell you, but like just through learning through it, stumbling through it, we're here.
Yeah. Yep. So, you went to Japan, and that's what we're here to talk to you about today. What made you decide to go to Japan?
So I was very lucky. I have two great friends, and we travel a lot together. And I'll just mention quickly, if y'all hear strange noises in the background, I have two dogs that are fighting in another room playing. So just, if
Play
there
fight.
might, well, there we go. A little bit of
Well, we
growling, a little bit of
mentioned
barking. It's not our bellies. But so yes, I have some really good friends, and shout out Adam and Whit Crosby, Adam McClam. But it was Adam and I's birthdays in April, and our good friend Whit has been wanting to go to Japan for a long time, and so he bought some tickets and essentially, offered them and said, "Hey, if you join, here's your free plane ticket." And so I had to say yes to that. So awesome, just a great buddy, and we've been a lot of places together. We've been to Rome and Switzerland and Paris and Iceland and Mexico. So it's good to have, travel friends.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for my 35th birthday, I was in Japan, and I was there for 15 days, and it was amazing. I really want to go back. It was the first foreign country I've been to that I could move to, that I felt so comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll dig into that,
Mm-hmm.
people and how easy it is there.
Was that this year? Was that earlier this year?
Yes, that
April
was
of 2025?
April of this year, yep.
Yeah.
So it's mostly fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But all right, well, so we flew, when did we get there? We got there on April Fools.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been throughout Asia. I've backpacked Thailand, Malaysia, Cambodia, ended up in Singapore. But Japan was a whole so different than Southeast Asia in a lot of ways. But we had a connector in Toronto, ended up after the long Pacific flight, 12 hours or whatever, in Tokyo. And, there's the jet lag. I think probably the night before, we flew out of New York as well. And the night before, we went out on the town and stayed up late. And essentially, we landed in Tokyo with no sleep and jet lagged. But of course, we had to go out.
Mm-hmm.
And we were staying in the Godzilla Hotel, which is in middle of Shinjuku. Shinjuku is like the party district of Tokyo. And so you step out, we get on the train, of course, at the airport, which we missed two trains, just trying to figure it out, and we get to the place we're supposed to be, but then we get confused, and then the train comes and we don't want to get on it because we don't know if it's the right one. But eventually, one thing that was a recurring theme was how kind and helpful the people over there are. And so a little old man saw us appear twice at the same spot, confused. And so he came over and looked at our ticket and essentially said, "Yes, stay right here until the train comes." And so we made it to Shinjuku probably at 11 o'clock in the evening. And it just, you walk out of the train station and it's just lights. It's what everyone has seen on TV about Tokyo, just neon lights, people everywhere, buildings all over the place. And for me, growing up in a really small town, coastal South Carolina, I mean, New York blows me away.
Right.
And it felt like Tokyo was New York on another level, taller, brighter, louder, busier, and of course, different. So different. I didn't ask earlier, but have either of y'all, have you been to Japan?
No.
So neither of y'all have been.
No.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is all just taking it in.
They wouldn't let me into Japan.
Now the pressure's on. Well, so yeah, Shinjuku is the fast, light tech, all of it. And it's a little bit bawdy, a little bit risque. There's a lot of these gentlemen's clubs, that are.
Do they have like a red light district?
Yes.
Okay.
And I guess it's probably their closest approximation. And I'll just disclaim, I've only been to Japan once, so I'm not the expert. And so someone might say, no, this place is the red light district.
Right.
But it's their version. And they did have, I did notice this, we saw this in Bangkok, but, there are attractive young ladies on the street, usually dressed in certain outfits, and they're there to give you a good time. And there was a lot of that in Tokyo, in Shinjuku, that I was a little surprised. and we ended up talking to a group thinking they were just people like us, a group of girls that were like, hey, where should we go? And then they start handing us the little pamphlets and we're like, oh no, no, thank you.
Yeah. So, okay. Because when you talked about going to Thailand, you talked about like women kind of running and like grabbing men off the street.
They're very aggressive there.
So was it the same?
It wasn't quite as aggressive, and it wasn't as I hate to use the word sad, but there were certainly some scenes in Bangkok that were just a little bit not disturbing, but eye-opening for me, and realizing it's a completely different culture, and I'm not trying to shade any of that. It's just different than what we're used to. But on Tokyo, it was certainly more organized, and they're all in a line out on the street though, and they're dressed like schoolgirls, and they're all sitting on their phones though. They're like on social media scrolling, just waiting for a man to walk up and ask. And I think what they were I think it was massages was what they were selling.
Right.
And also nightclubs. There's like these special clubs you can go to, that it seemed like it was just the people that worked at the club were out there, like, oh, we're all going to this club. Let's all go together. But we were on, and my friends Adam and Whit had done a lot of great research, and so they kind of had in mind we wanted the off the back streets kind of experience. And there's a district that I can't remember the name of it, but it's in Shinjuku. I mentioned we stayed at the Godzilla Hotel, which has a giant Godzilla.
I've seen pictures of that. Yeah,
it's like every few hours it like lights up and spits fire, and that was really cool. So we were like in the middle of the best spot to be in Shinjuku. One of the nights there was a boy band playing out there in the plaza, and we got like a free concert, which that's a whole nother thing. The boy bands over there. Oh my gosh. K-pop, right? Crazy. But anyways, so the first night we went kind of off the beaten path to this little district where all the buildings were only like 2 or 3 stories high instead of 100 stories high. So it was like this, and they were older. So it's like a little section of old Tokyo, and it was all bars. And I'm sure someone can look it up and find it in a minute. But it was very beautiful. There was greenery, there was trees, there was ivy growing up on the buildings. And it's crazy how tight the spaces are. That was one thing that hit me early on. They utilize their space so much better than we do. Most people's apartments are probably the square footage of like a large SUV. And a lot of these bars where you walk in there, the walls are 10 feet across and they've fit in a bar on one side. And so you're shoulder to shoulder with the wall. Yeah. And it's full of people. But it's like you walk in and it seems like there's not a single square inch at the bar. And yet all these Japanese people cram over and pull out. All of a sudden there's a stool, and then there's another stool that comes out, and all of a sudden there's space for us 3 Americans to sit down. And a lot of these bars, it seemed like maybe it was the night of the week, but there weren't a lot of Americans or Europeans. It was mostly, I would assume, Japanese people, drinking after work, little small groups of 4 or 5 guys, a couple of girls, probably around 20s and 30s. I learned that they have a interesting drinking culture. They work really hard. They work long days, and then they all get out and they go to the bar together, usually with their boss or their manager. And essentially it's this culture that you don't leave until the manager leaves. And so let's say you have the manager who's just a party animal and stays out till 2. Well, all the guys that work underneath him are going to stay out till 2 as well. Right. And so we met some groups like that. We met one group, the guy's name was Taka, and he gave us some sort of, I don't know, rice liquor or something that's real popular over there. He, first thing was pass around the alcohol, everyone take a swig, which is very much what you could expect in an American college town, Right. So definitely that sort of like, new people. They were all very curious about us as Americans, wanted to know where we're from and something about it. They all knew of South Carolina. That was for sure. Everyone we spoke to, South Carolina, yeah. But it was cool. So it was these tight little bars that you squeeze into, and we tried different drinks, whatever they recommended. The price point I noticed across Japan was pretty good. It was a little more expensive in Tokyo, but I would say things were 40% cheaper
Hmm.
in Tokyo, and maybe out in other cities, 60% cheaper. So,
Wow.
I'm not much of a drinker,
Hmm.
um, not anymore, but since, when in Japan on your birthday trip,
Hmm.
um, we got a little tipsy each night, and
You enjoyed yourself
I
on
enjoyed myself,
vacation.
and had these interesting, cool drinks that I'd never tried, these
Hmm.
liquors and things that never heard of, and I couldn't even tell you what they are right now. But um, it was different in a lovely way.
Hmm.
Here you'll go to a bar, and it's like the bartender might be, the bartender's nice or cordial, but part of it's because it's their job.
Hmm.
Over there, it's just whether it's the bartender or the owner who's sitting in the corner or just the guy on the street, everyone was just super friendly. I think it's just deep in their culture.
Hmm. And honest too.
Honest and Oh, that was the best thing
I've
about
heard
it.
stories of people losing their wallet and going back a week later, and they're like, "Yeah, we got it. It's right here." It's like not in the States. That won't
Yeah.
happen.
That was another big contrast from Southeast Asia.
Hmm.
Was there you had to keep everything close, and
Hmm.
in Japan that was the biggest thing that made me feel so comfortable. Is just knowing that you can go out at night, go to some bars, walk around, I had my camera with me, a very nice, expensive camera, and not a single worry that it was going to get snatched. This was all things that we read online ahead of time, but when you're there, you realize it. You just feel
Hmm.
like just the way everyone interacts with you felt so safe,
Hmm.
and that was just the big thing of I could totally live here. I did learn that though their culture is so interesting and it's very nuanced and unique, and just like here, we complain about people from afar, or at least I do, moving
Hmm.
here and developing or whatever. There is they love having visitors, but I do think there is a little bit of reservation when it comes to foreigners moving there. A lot of bars or restaurants they'll have a sign that says Japanese only or Japanese speaking only.
Hmm.
I think they're a little fed up with some of the influencers,
Right. Hmm.
and the YouTube and so I tried to be one thing is being a big tall dude who always has his camera on him. I tried to tone down
Hmm.
my urge to want to film everything or take pictures of everything, just to be respectful.
Right.
Because that is certainly one thing is on the trains, you don't have a phone conversation on the train. You don't really talk loud on the train. You don't play any music. The trains are very quiet and orderly. You don't eat while walking down the street. If you
Hmm.
go and get some food, like even at the convenience store, there'd be a few little chairs or a bench outside with some tables. So that was another thing. No one walks and eats. No one eats on the streets, really.
Hmm.
Um,
Is that because there's something in the culture that's like very respectful or of like mealtime? Is that something that you see, or is just like that's just not a thing? You just don't walk and eat.
Probably there's some of that with maybe certain meal times, but I think most of it is they really respect public space. Every public space, whether it's a transport or a sidewalk or a park, it's like they view, public space or being in public, it's like you're supposed to be on your highest behavior as respect to everyone else, but also maybe that self-respect too. It's like
Hmm.
no one
Yeah,
wants to be seen as a sloppy person out in public.
that's
I
interesting.
think I don't know, just like growing up in the South, and I know that there's a version of this everywhere, but like I want you to grow up to be a Southern gentleman, right? This
Hmm.
idea that there is this standard of being. I think that that's really ingrained over there in Japan,
Hmm.
to a higher level that maybe even comes from like the samurai era, perhaps.
Right. Having
Um,
honor for your family and
yeah.
not dishonoring or losing face. It's interesting, and there is a contrast because going back to the drinking culture, I know that they do have a really extreme drinking culture over there, and it's not out of the ordinary to see like businessmen with like suits on laying in the street. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know that what they'll do over there is they're so nice over there that people will actually leave water around the bodies laying in the street for when they wake up. And I just think, you wouldn't see that here in the States and they'd rob you.
Wow.
We did see that the first night, a security guard that was like so over here, let's say you have some drunk that's passed out in a public place. The cops will come try to wake the person up. Maybe they'll just carry the person off. This guy was crouching down, gently shaking the person. Wake up, like very almost as if it was like a family member. But he was, just trying to get the person to move on somewhere else. But even that was kind. Let's see. We saw a lot of people in nice suits out at night, drinking in their suits and even hanging out in groups out on the street. And then sometimes, like the next morning, you would see there would be a few people still out there looking very hungover. There was even a group that brought their own chairs. They brought their own chairs and a little table, and they set it up like just on the sidewalk, kind of out front of our hotel. And it was like a group of friends out there just drinking and smoking and eating and like listening to, they were listening to music. But it was just interesting. It was like, we kind of assumed, we're like, all right, this is their corner, like we were joking like, oh, that's the gang, or that's, I'm not going to say Yakuza, but.
Did you see any Yakuza over there?
No, but I will say my two friends both have a lot of tattoos.
Yeah, that was another thing I was going to ask about. I've heard that in a lot of places in Japan, you need to have them covered. And that if, a Yakuza does happen to see you, they may strike up a conversation based on tattoos alone.
I think that's changed in recent years because my friends, they had no one, I don't think really anyone mentioned anything, or they had no issues. We did go to an onsen where you cover up. But yeah, they had no problems. We only had one dinner that was very formal, and that was at the onsen. But they even, after I left, they stayed and they both got tattoos over there. So I do think that is part of the culture that is changing, is the tattoo aspect. Another interesting thing, I'm a coffee lover, and they had all crazy amounts of coffee over there. And we will need to talk about vending machines. Their vending machine game is on another level.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of coffee. And I found out after the trip that 30 years ago, you could almost find zero coffee in Japan. They were a tea drinking society. And that, I guess it was the coffee companies, they marketed coffee to children as coffee flavored candy, coffee flavored ice cream, coffee flavored cookies or whatever, coffee flavored cake. And that they essentially, through the youth, after over 20 years, they created a coffee culture. And now Japan, I believe, is one of the like highest consumers of coffee in the world as a society. And there's vending machines everywhere in Tokyo. Like, I'm trying to think of something as common in the States. As many vending machines as we have telephone poles, right? Like everywhere. And it would not be one vending machine. It would be a row of 3 vending machines and then another row of 3 on top. They were smaller vending machines. And then there were heated vending machines and cooled vending machines. And so, of course, you could get your hot coffee, you could get your iced coffee, of course, all sorts of food vending machines that would come out piping hot, and a bowl of ramen or whatever. And then they had tons of these machines that would be full of like stuff you'd see at an arcade, like little knickknacks and little toys and like anime toys and Hot Wheels cars, and I don't know, almost everything imaginable that you could put in a vending machine, they have them in vending machines there. And again, everywhere. I mean, the most common thing we saw were these little machines. And it was, at first it was a little unbecoming. It's like I have this idea of Japan, and I'm thinking the classical Japan architecture, and you get there, and of course the lights I'm excited about, but seeing thousands of vending machines everywhere, I'm like, whoa, what is this? But then you start to look in them and you just realize, like, yeah, from toys to stickers to food and bev. And it grew on me. And that was only in Tokyo.
Yeah. Did a lot of people speak English?
Yes.
In Tokyo?
Yes, in Tokyo. Everywhere we went, people spoke English. There were a few places in, let's see, Hakone and in Kyoto where we're always going off the beaten path. And so we did find a few places where people spoke a little broken English, but especially in Tokyo though, everyone spoke English. Shout out to Bar Sai, PSI. It was this heavy metal bar that we went to, and we went there a few nights, and it was epic. But they all spoke really great English. They brought us behind the bar because it was our birthday. They were playing like all American rock music and even metal music, and it was like, I'm talking like heavy, like the bartenders are in there shaking their head like if they're in a mosh pit, partying loud, long hair flying. There were so many themed bars. And that's the other thing I mentioned, that these little tight, tiny spaces, and then they're stacked on top of each other. And so it's like there's a karaoke bar in one place, and then the metal bar, and then on top of it is a country bar, and then next to it is a pony bar. It's like every theme you can think of, they would come up with either a restaurant or a bar for that theme.
So interesting.
I think it has to do with they have that anime culture and the manga culture, and which that was also a whole nother level.
Well, I want to go back to what you said about the coffee of them, like basically taking 20 years to create like a coffee culture. Like, talk about playing the long game.
Yeah. Well, and that was actually, though, I think that was our company's like Folgers and Nestle or whatever.
Did you see Starbucks over there? Or was it more local?
I think there was some Starbucks. Yeah. KFC. It was funny. The KFC was almost like treated like it was a nicer establishment than some of the like Japanese restaurants around it. And they had different items too. Yeah. Totally different items than we have. It was really good, and it was cheap because I had KFC. The most common meal, and we should touch on this at some point, but is convenience stores. Like that's a whole, convenience stores is also like a whole amazing segment of their society.
It's like in Bangkok, the 7-Eleven culture.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get they're called the tasties, the little sandwiches that you go in there and they'll make them for you. And that's a big deal over there. Everybody talks about the 7-Elevens in Bangkok because there's one every like 15 feet.
That's how it was in Tokyo. It was either 7-Eleven or Family Mart. And every block there was one, and you walk in and it's like most of what's in there is just different type of food, and it's walls of food. But it's much higher quality than the food that we would have here at like a gas station, or because you can walk to a gas station, they can have different food items already prepackaged, or maybe they're slinging pizza or something. But there it was you were getting good quality, fresh, delicious things. They'd have rice balls that inside would have like salmon roe, or crab meat, or different types of salted fish. I mean, anything you could think of at a sushi restaurant, except for maybe the nigiri, the fresh fish. But like rolls and things you could get at the gas station. Yeah, gas station sushi. It was amazing. And little sandwiches and just interesting things. And that was part of it, was just everything was so different. And so part of the fun was just the first night is I'm going to pick 8 different things that I don't know what they are and try them. And I loved everything. And also it was cheap. It would be 50 or 60% cheaper than an equivalent here. And so $10 would get you a smorgasbord at the end of the evening.
I can only imagine, because we like to go, if we see one, just out and about, or like, kind of where we live, to the like Asian markets here in the US. So I can only imagine, like, we'll go in there and just be like, oh my gosh, there's so many like cool snacks, and just, I mean, even like the flavored sparkling waters that have like the Pokemon on them. It's like, these are so cool. So I could only imagine what it's the magnitude. Times 1,000 probably.
They have like such great innovation when it comes to, like, I'm thinking automotive, I'm thinking Panasonic, I'm thinking like cameras and technology, but they apply that same innovation though to their food, and it's like everything they do with this meticulousness, and that's still in the culture. As the world modernizes, we lose bits of that. But Japan has done a good job with holding on to the craftsmanship, and everything they do, they try to do to an excellent level, including convenience store snacks.
Right.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so far we've only been to Tokyo. How long did you spend in Tokyo?
I believe we spent 5 or 6 days. In the first 5 days, did not sleep much. I was feeling really rough, but we just, powered through because you can't waste a day there. We did, so in Tokyo's mostly this, big, tall city. It spans forever as well. We had a room really high up in the Godzilla Tower, and so I got some great photos just looking out at the horizon, and it's just city as far as the eye can see. There are, though, interspersed between the giant buildings are these old temples. They've done a great job in keeping their old architecture and their old temples. And a lot of the old temples, or maybe it's not a temple, maybe but with the sweeping like gable roofs and just that 400-year-old architecture or older, a lot of those, they even turn into like preschools and daycare centers. I was so surprised one day. I'm walking around and I find on the map, like, okay, there's these 2 temples a few blocks away. Let me go check those out. I get there and there's kids running around, and it's a preschool inside of this ancient, beautiful Japanese temple and beautiful Japanese garden. And that's where they're teaching their kids. And I realized what an appropriate thing. It's like, because they want to instill in their youth this tradition and this respect for the culture. And well, what a better place to do it than this architecture and these old buildings that they've preserved so well. I think that helps to instill. You go to daycare in an ancient temple or an old building like that that's so beautiful and kept up, that you're going to grow up respecting it. And so that was cool. That was beautiful. And I'm sure there's some term they have for it, but that was a shock to me. I'm thinking that it's going to be a place I can go take pictures of. And when I see the kids run around, I took pictures maybe from afar, but I really wanted to respect. That's one thing I mentioned earlier. Really wanted to respect their culture and not taking photos of everybody and everything. Let me go tell my puppy to be quiet.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I noticed in at least Southeast Asia, a lot of the temples that you see, whether they're touristy or not, that's where like the monks, a lot of them are used as like a monastery, and that's where the monks stay. And kind of like your same situation about being unsure about taking pictures. It's like, you don't really know. Are you allowed to take pictures of the monks? Or are you not supposed to? Because they have rules over there as far as like interacting with the monks and stuff. So do they have monks in Japan?
I'm sure they do. I believe I think we saw some monks in Nikko. I don't recall seeing any in Tokyo or Kyoto. It's certainly in Southeast Asia. It's like, you see the people dressed in the robe and the bald head, and they stood out. But I don't think we didn't meet any. That's for sure.
So Nikko is the place you went after Tokyo.
Yes. So from Tokyo, we had our great fun there in Tokyo, and we took the Shinkansen, which is the bullet train, the fast train, which I've learned that a lot of the locals over there, I might have to go let her out or something. A lot of the locals don't take the Shinkansen. That's too expensive. That's for the rich people or whatever.
Oh, interesting.
Over here, you take an Uber in a city, and sometimes if you're going 45 minutes, it could be $60, $80, right? So it was kind of on that price line. So I thought, actually, it's not too expensive. It's a good deal. We're going, I don't know, 300 miles in a couple hours, for $70 or whatever it was. It was probably the most expensive thing once we got there. But still, for what you get to travel so fast. And
how fast does it go?
I don't know the speed, but it is, when you're on it, you can feel it accelerate. It's not that impressive, but we were at the station, and when one comes by and zooms by, it's like this long train comes past you, and then it's gone in like 3 seconds. And I had my phone out. I'm like, I'm going to get a cool video. And it's just like, it's there and gone.
Wow.
Crazy fast. So probably over 200 miles an hour, maybe faster. I don't recall, but it was
we could
impressive.
Look it up. I was just wondering if you knew.
It was impressive, and I'm so frustrated. Why can't we do that here? Because you could get from here to New York in 2 hours. So it was pretty amazing, and clean and comfortable and all that. But so the next destination was Nikko. And Nikko, there's kind of two sides to Nikko, two towns. But we get out of the train station and we walk out into this quaint little town. It's no longer a city. Of course, when you're on the Shinkansen, you watch the countryside go by, which was amazing because, yeah, we're in Tokyo and it's miles of buildings. And then all of a sudden, boom, we're in the countryside. And it went real fast. And the countryside is very open, mountains in the distance, but a lot of farms. And it seemed like a lot of small, or maybe even small, like homesteads that had large gardens. I think a lot of people there garden or have their own little plot of land where they're growing something. Very beautiful. We went past a lot of rivers, and I noticed, at least around Tokyo, it seemed like many of the rivers are now man-made channels. Very organized and concrete slopes on the side. I don't know. So everything is very manipulated. And I realized, Japan is a small country with a long history. And so a lot of the land has been terraformed and shaped and manipulated over the millennia. Now, Nikko, the great thing about Nikko is you do get to see some of the natural side. You see the mountains, the forests, the cypress trees were amazing, huge, which we'll get into that. But first thing, we step out of the train station and it's this cute little mountain town. Looked like the Japanese version of Helena, Georgia, 2-3 story buildings, but plenty of space between. They had this unique look about them, more classical, modern buildings, but had the classical Japanese cues, the lines to the roof. And there's a name for this, but they have these little little statues and little idols that will sit outside of a building that is meant to give you good luck when you walk through the door or something. And so you'd see these cute little, some of them were raccoon dogs, but they were like a cute little anime version with big eyes, and or some were little frogs, cute frogs, a little statue of a frog, and there'd be coins around it. Like people give a coin to give them. It's like they believe in good spirits and bad spirits, and good energy and bad energy. And so that was another thing we noticed. These little mini shrines almost outside of every building, every house. We look up the street and you see these white-capped mountains that were just stunning. And that was a shock because it's like a few hours ago, we're in the middle of a city, we step out and it's like the Alps are right there. So that was stunning. And the big point of Nikko, the lower town, is the World Heritage Site, which we'll dig into.
Before, quick, what was the weather like when you were there? Like temperature-wise, you were there in April.
It was a little bit cooler than it is here in South Carolina, probably 70s. Nikko was a little bit colder, and we ended up going up to the upper town, which is in the mountains, and there was snow. So the lower town of Nikko was probably in the low 70s. It felt great. It was perfect weather. Everywhere we went felt really good. Didn't need a jacket, except for up in the mountains. So yeah, a little cooler than the Carolinas, that's for sure.
Nice. What about humidity? Did you notice?
I didn't notice any humidity, but the one thing in Tokyo is, I don't want to necessarily call it smog, but there is a lot of stuff in the air from all of not so much vehicles, not as car reliant as we are, and not even the mopeds or things that you see in Southeast Asia. But whatever it is, there was a lot of stuff in the air, a lot of smog or whatever in the air that kind of, I noticed I was having allergic dripping meltdowns in Tokyo. And then we get to Nikko and all of a sudden we're hit in the face with this fresh, crisp mountain air. It was clean and beautiful, and the water was clean.
You notice that when you fly into China, it's like the mountains are so incredible. And then as you get closer into one of the bigger cities like Beijing, it's just smog. You can just tell it's just, and the people that live there, their whole lives, you just wonder what that does to their health,
I'm sure Tokyo isn't near as bad as some of the cities in China, but it was noticeable for me, coming here. But no humidity, so humidity can be bad. But yeah, so Nikko though was fresh air and coming down off the mountains, and it's really so there's a lake that's way high up in the mountains, and it's like holy water. It's like a holy lake, and the lake then feeds into a river or a spring or creeks that come down this mountain, and it's to them it's like the holy water coming down the mountain. And so at this site where the water comes down the mountain is this temple complex that spans for miles. And it's the Nikko temples. There's probably a more proper word for it, but it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It is hundreds of these buildings that date back to the Edo period, which is 1500s, mid 1500s. So essentially, the whole complex was built. It was built over many generations. So there were some temples there that were Buddhist temples, some that were Shinto, I believe, and then some were built for the Tokugawa shogunate. And the Tokugawa shogun, the shogun is the military leader, and then they have an emperor. They had just come out of the Warring States period. So the Warring States was like the late 1400s. Whole Japan was fractured and fighting. There was an emperor, but the emperor was essentially had no power. And so all these military factions are battling it out. And, I'm not the historical expert, but essentially the Tokugawa shogun came out on top, and he united all of these warring factions and established a period of, I think, 200 years of peace and development. And it's known as the Edo period. Very, I think a very positive time, a tranquil time in their history. So that's when you see a lot of this incredible traditional Japanese architecture of these beautiful sweeping gables, these roofs that sweep down, beautiful reds. And the cool thing about the Nikko complex, so you're going up the mountain, you're starting down at the base of the mountain, and you're climbing these stairs, going up, and you're passing different buildings. At the bottom, you're passing the stables, the old stables that, they literally, the samurai had their horses in, and then different, the armory or different random buildings. But as you get higher and higher up, then you start to get to the temples, and the very top of the mountain there was the sacred temple that was for the Tokugawa shogun and him alone. So at the time, there's a whole temple that was built just for one person. Only one person can enter the temple. Now, luckily, we are now able to enter that temple. But there was one thing I learned that, so there's like a hierarchy, right? You start low and then you end at the top. And there's each level that you go up is more and more sacred. They have these cypress trees and these huge cypress there that 400 to 600 years old, maybe even a little older. And they're absolutely massive. I'm very proud of our bald cypress trees here in the Carolinas. But these cypress were, I would say, more akin to like small redwoods. That beautiful, straight, tall, thick trunk that is just probably 20, 30 feet in circumference all the way up to the top, right? A huge mass of wood, that beautiful red bark, the beautiful dark evergreen leaves. And they specifically kept as many of these. So they used these old cypress, these sacred cypress, to build the temples. And then they kept the forest pristine there. And so as you're going up to the temples, you're walking through a 600 or 700-year-old forest. And the canopy is, here our canopy of pine trees is 100 feet, 120 feet. Some of these cypress were maybe, I don't know, close to 200 feet. I mean, it was just a whole nother, maybe not quite that high, but it's just a whole nother level of canopy that I wasn't used to, a forest that was, whoa, like way, way up there. And also very orderly. They are so orderly there. So there's no scrub, no underbrush. They keep it pristine. So you look out and all you see are these cypress trees and a blanket of needles. And so you can see far. And I mean, just what you would imagine out of a a fairy tale Japanese scene.
Mm-hmm.
So we go up and we're visiting all these incredible temples, and the scroll work. I mean, every inch of every building is covered in ornate carving of different characters. Like if you've been to any of the cathedrals in Europe, some of these cathedrals you go up and you see there's 100 little stone characters carved.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that, I mean, every inch of wood is art, is decoration. They use a lot of yellows and reds and whites and blacks. And so these very contrasty colors that just like you see in Japanese painting, they almost have this, I guess it's proto anime or proto manga, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like a cartoonish artistic style. And that's kind of, they put that into their buildings as well. The buildings really popped.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going up and every building is beautiful and different. There is one of the temples there is famous because it's where we get and I've got it right there, the see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil monkeys.
Mm-hmm.
And that is like become a thing known across the globe. And that in reality was just one small little fresco, one small little carving on this, on the stables, actually. It's on the stables. And there's like 50 other monkeys that are a part of the scene. But it was cool to see the OG, hear no evil, speak no evil, see no evil monkeys. And so that was cool.
Is that is that something that you got from Japan?
Yes, I got that from Nikko, actually. We went, afterwards, we went up to the mountain town and found a craftsman who was there literally carving the old traditional way with chisel. These just different beautiful little wooden, from cups and bowls and plates to little statues and figurines and things like that. That actually, I believe that's made of epoxy. That there's an expensive version and a cheap version. So that's actually epoxy. But he was carving some very nice stuff that was made of that special cypress wood, a beautiful dark red grain. And the gentleman there was like 80 or 90 years old, and his little wife was there serving coffee, and she was 80 or 90, and it was literally what you would imagine, like, the little Japanese elder craftsman and his wife hand producing things for people to buy. But that was up in the mountain town. I guess it's hard to describe just the beauty of this Nikko complex because we spent hours there climbing up. I mean, it'll take you 2 hours to get to the top if you're walking the whole time. Hundreds of temples, every single one blows your mind. A few larger than the rest. You go into some of these temples, and of course, you take your shoes off. And they had it all very orderly and set up. They had cubby holes outside. They had signage. You pay a price like $7 to go get to the next level up. But you go in there, and they were doing these gong ceremonies, or where they were maybe these were the monks. They were in there praying and kneeling, and there's very interesting gong sound that I can only describe it. It was a sound that I've heard in a old Japanese video game called Onimusha Warriors, and that's very niche. But if you've ever played Onimusha Warriors and you've heard the gong, it was that same noise. Beautiful, very not a loud gong, a very subtle gong. Can't make the noise, but it was beautiful. So we're in this temple, and we're hearing the gong and the chanting, and all the while is this creek that flows down, this holy water, and there are different not fountains but troughs carved in stone where you can drink the water, and you were welcome. You were almost, it was part of it. As you ascend the mountain, you're almost supposed to drink some of the sacred water. So we partook in that. You finally get up to the top to what was the sacred temple that was meant only for the Tokugawa shogunate. And that's where he's buried. And so we went in there and saw that, and it was cool. And, people, you just have to go online and type in Nikko, Nikko, and you'll see the different temples. There's a few real popular ones. One of them was the 5-tiered pagoda. One of them was the Buddhist temple. Um, we went inside. The Buddhist one was really, really large, and they have different. Actually, I don't know if it was Buddhist, but they had different. Like in Thailand, there would be like these giant Buddha statues. They had these different giant statues of like one of them had multiple arms. So these different statues that you go in and you like give a couple coins and I don't want to call it ancestor worship or anything, but it was just I don't know. Their religion is very unique. Very much spirits, very much ancestors, very much. I don't know if you would call them gods, but certain idols. So I think maybe just to, in order to not butcher their religion and their temples, just check out Nikko, the Nikko World Heritage Site, Nikko. You'll see the temples and the artwork and do a deep dive on it because it's beautiful. Beautiful tradition and all that comes from 500, 600 years ago, Warring States period and into the Edo period. So yeah, that was really cool. And so that was my favorite place was Nikko, just visiting all of the temples and seeing that historical, fantastical Japanese architecture. From there, we got on the bus and we went up the mountain, only maybe 5 miles, but way up in elevation. And we get to the high Nikko town that's on this sacred lake up in the mountains. We get off the bus and all of a sudden there's snow all around us and it's cold. It wasn't super cold, but a little chilly getting to our onsen, which we stayed in an onsen that night. And beautiful lake, took a lot of pictures, of course, light to the snow as a South Carolina boy.
What's an onsen?
So an onsen, how do I describe it? It's part, I don't want to say spa, but it's like, so they have these hot springs. So an onsen is like the place you go to bathe in these hot springs, and it's kind of like a spa. That is where you cannot show any tattoos. It's like a spiritual, traditional hot spring spa / hotel resort garden.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of anything comparable. But they have onsens all across Japan. And so it's where you go to meditate and experience some of the real traditional Japanese gardens that we saw were in onsens. But this onsen, so it was basically a hotel that had a hot springs like on the back of the hotel. And I actually didn't go in the onsen because, just didn't go in there that day. But part of it is this hotel, though, you get in there and they give you robes. And so you're supposed to wear your Japanese or your kimono. You're supposed to wear your kimono in there. You wear your kimono to dinner. You wear this. They give you slippers that you wear. And so that's part of the onsen is you're not there it's not a typical hotel, right? We spent the night there. We ate dinner there, but you were there to be absorbed into their culture in a way, and have that traditional experience. So we had that was the best dinner I've had. I had in Japan, certainly. One of the best dinners I've ever had was that night in the onsen up at this high town. So we did that after the Nikko Temple complex. So it was in the afternoon we got up there. So we really didn't do much, but went and looked at the lake and then went to dinner. And it was like a 5-course meal, but it was traditional Japanese food. And so, very almost like a miso soup, but homemade version, better than any miso soup I've ever had. And different like tempura dishes. I mean, the guy, and that's the other thing, it's like the guy that owned the onsen was also the chef. And there was only like 5 different groups in there. And so very small, 5 little groups, that's it. He's making everything. He brings it out. There was a ceremony with each thing. He brings it out, and one of them was like a tofu dish, and he, you get the hot water and you put the tofu in the hot water and then put the cap on it, and he showed us what to do with it, which was very just elegant, traditional service. And of course, there was sushi, there was nigiri, there was the tempura, there was fish, there was I believe it was like beef spare ribs that were done in this way where it melted in your mouth. And again, each time the man that owned the place would bring it out and put it in. And we were even joking. We called him the big boss because he looked like he didn't have any tattoos, but he was kind of intimidating. Like if there was anyone there that could have been a Yakuza, it was this guy. He would walk out with just a straight face, and he would put it all down and do the ceremony, and then he'd go and like stand in the corner and cross his arms and just kind of look around and just make sure all was well in his kingdom before then going back into the kitchen. So Big Boss was cool. And just amazing dinner and 5-course. Tried all sorts of different things that I can't even remember. Have to go look online, but it was delicious, and then a great dessert, and yeah, amazing food in the onsen in Nikko.
And I can't tell you last time I had a 5-course meal. That sounds very like you described their culture already, like very meticulous.
Yes, meticulous, exactly. It was price point. So the onsen that we stayed in for one night, it was like $150, and that included the dinner.
Wow.
And it was, I mean, comparably here, it would have been a $400 or $500 type hotel dinner combo. So it was very affordable for the price. I remember when we first got there thinking like $150 because everything was cheaper. And we were like, yeah, this is definitely the most expensive place we're staying. I was like, oh, $150. That was a little more than I was expecting. And then to find out that it wasn't just a hotel, it was like this resort, and it included the meal and included an amazing breakfast too. Same thing with the breakfast. It was like a 5-course breakfast of deliciousness, no cereal, no crap that we eat over here. It was like real rice dishes, and they have sweet and savory options for breakfast. So anyways, it was really, really good. And unfortunately, we only spent one day in Nikko. From there, we got back on the bus. We drove back down the mountain. We got back on the Shinkansen and went to Kyoto. Actually, no, I'm sorry. Hakone, which is on the way to Kyoto. We did one day in Hakone, and the main thing with Hakone is there's this beautiful lake where you can get a view of Mount Fuji. And it was a little more touristy. There was a lot of tourists in Hakone. They have these little duck boats that all the tourists are getting on and paddling out. And so, of course, we rented the duck boat for $2 and spent 30 minutes paddling out into the middle of the lake to see. There's a temple that's like, it's basically not an archway, but it's a red like entryway to a house, right? So it's 2 red tall pillars and then a flat red crossbar on top. And you see these a lot of places in Japan. This one was like 100 feet tall. And like that's the shrine, is this entryway. And so that is on the edge of the lake. And then you see Mount Fuji in the distance. And so I got some good pictures. It was beautiful. We had a good giggle paddling the little duck boats. Had some beverages. That was another thing, is they have interesting beers. I was enjoying Kirin Ichiban, which, how can I compare it? It's like a lager/pilsner, but very yummy beer. And we only stayed there for a day. We didn't spend the night there. We went back down to another little town that we stayed in another onsen, actually. And I can't remember what it was called, but it was this onsen. We didn't get the dinner, but what they had there was this garden that was just the most beautiful Japanese cherry blossom. Oh, that's the other thing, cherry blossoms. It was the season. So this amazing garden that was maybe an acre, and beautiful cherry blossom trees, and all these trees and plants and flowers and foliage, but everything was placed there purposefully. It was all designed. Stone pathways, a babbling brook that leads down to a koi pond with an island in the koi pond, and you can step across the rocks and go to the island. And There were kids out there feeding the koi. It was so beautiful. Birds chirping. That was another thing. It was the first place where it was birds everywhere in this beautiful garden. There were chickadees, which we have chickadees here. And I remember looking up and seeing a little chickadee and being like, wait a minute. How's there a chickadee on the other side of the world? And then, probably flew there. But it was cool. It was a little taste of home. A little bit of that, just the relaxing gorgeousness of that onsen traditional garden. So we spent the night there. They had it all lit up. The next day we wake up, we visit the garden again, and then we jump on the Shinkansen and head to Kyoto. We stayed, period of time in Tokyo, and then some of the trip was transition, where we're spending a day here, a day there. But Kyoto, we stayed there for 4 or 5 days. We went to the old part of Kyoto, which has the Imperial Palace and then a castle, and I cannot remember the name of the castle. I wouldn't be able to pronounce it if I could. But that was a very interesting thing to notice and to see. There was a very stark difference in the castle that was owned by the shogun versus the palace, which was imperial. And the first day we went and checked out this castle. So the castle has that traditional Japanese architecture, the sweeping roofs, the beautiful pillars, the carvings all over. The color scheme in Kyoto was more black and white, less of the reds. But it was a very beautiful castle complex. We walked around it, toured. We walked up on the walls. It was very cool to stand on the walls and just know that 500 years ago, there were samurai battling it out at that castle. I believe at some point there was a conflict with Buddhists, maybe Chinese Buddhists. And I believe that part of Kyoto was taken over maybe by the Chinese. And please correct me if I'm wrong, people out there listening. But we went to the Imperial Palace, and the Imperial Palace was not that same Japanese classical architecture. It was very different. And I believe that's because there is Buddhist influence. So the Imperial Palace was very stark. It wasn't ornate. There were plain walls. It was very Spartan. And so, yeah, this crazy difference between one place is just artistry and ornate, and the other is bare bones and open plazas with nothing in it but the temple at the other end. And I think maybe that's similar to, I've seen pictures of like maybe the Forbidden City in China, and part of it is they have this huge open plaza that's meant to like intimidate you. You're walking towards the temple and there's nothing there, just a huge open paved area. So there was some of that in the Imperial Palace, almost meant to like overwhelm you with how basic it was. Of course, there were some beautiful gardens in there, and the Imperial Palace is an enclosed complex that's within a huge park that's probably almost the size of Central Park. So a huge, huge park with trees and forests and water. So really beautiful. And then in the center of that is the Imperial Palace. Again, they very intentionally, it's like they take the place that is sacred and important to them. And as Kyoto is growing, it's like they set a standard, said, no, we are not going to build anything, until you're a mile out or whatever it was. Could have been a mile because I was sweat by the time I got to it. So yeah, and we toured that and got to see where the emperor sat. And that's another thing that we learned, that these rulers, I mean, they would sit on their knees, like they'd roll out a mat and then kneel and basically spend all day like sitting on their knees in a position that any American would be crying over after 10 minutes. And that it seemed like if you're the ruler or you're the emperor, it seemed like a very boring life. Right. That you would just sit in this temple all day and, I guess on occasion people would come up and ask you things or whatever, but it just, from what we saw from the there's placards and things that teach you the history. Um, I don't know. It just seemed the position of emperor, like the complex, seemed very Spartan and very like solemn.
Mm-hmm.
Seems very like my like purpose is to serve my people.
Yeah.
Like so I'm here waiting for
Yeah. Just
what's happening.
yeah.
So no thrones.
No thrones.
Yeah.
No
Very,
distractions.
it's a very stoic culture.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. That's a great way to describe. Like the palace was very stoic.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that dichotomy was interesting, and again, I think that part of that was a Buddhist influence. There's a lot of orange in the Imperial Palace, whereas I mentioned the castle was black and white, and I was listening to another tour group, and I heard the lady talking about the Buddhist influence, and it was a little surprising that. I mean, they left it, right? They didn't change it. I guess after the Buddhists were gone, they didn't go back and repaint it. They left it how it was, and so Kyoto, the old side of Kyoto, they had that, but they also had a lot of those, as I mentioned before, those temples that were then converted into like preschools. Dozens of those scattered throughout. Some very cool, famous roads that are like market streets. And there's a lot of tourism there. A lot of tourists in Kyoto on these different market streets, right? You're walking down, it's shoulder to shoulder. On the side is all these little, kind of like a bazaar, One of them, there was a place that was selling, kind of like in Southeast Asia, they're selling like weird things to make Americans eat, like fried sparrow or like wiggly octopus or, all the ooey gooey things. There was a lot of that, it was very expensive there as well. So definitely kind of some touristy areas. I don't want to call them tourist traps though, because it was still very cool and very awesome just to walk down.
Right.
Some of these roads as well. So they're pedestrian streets, no cars going up and down. And above them, they were covered. And one of them was covered in these beautiful, like, fabric stretched over the road, and then underneath the fabric was flags, and it was flags of every nation in the world. And so you're walking down the street and you're looking up and you're seeing all these different flags, and then you spot your own flag. And almost that seemed like it was intentionally meant to welcome foreigners. This whole street is like, we're here to welcome you. And then another street we went to was like stained glass. So the walkway or the cover above you, and it's 2 stories up, is greens and reds and orange glass. And so the light that comes down is those shades. And so it's just a really great vibe. They really put a lot into making not only their streets clean, but their streets interesting and or at least the places where they know that tourists are going to be, or visitors, really. I shouldn't say tourists. Visitors. We were treated like visitors, like guests. They make the streets nice and beautiful and an attraction all in their own. So that was a really cool part of Kyoto. And it also is very much, I mentioned these streets, there were a lot of tourists there. You take you walk 100 yards from that street, and all of a sudden it's dead quiet and there's not a soul, and you can hear the birds chirping again. And so that's the other thing. Kyoto had the touristy sections, but it was also the quietest city I think I've ever been to. Maybe akin to Charleston in the middle of the night. Not a lot of vehicular traffic. There were some highways that maybe went around the city, but empty streets, people riding bikes up and down. Just so peaceful, felt so safe. I went on a lot of little solo adventures during the days, just walking in a direction, just walking around the city, and always felt comfortable and never felt like, a car was approaching from behind or anything. Like it just felt easy. And
You didn't
Kyoto
experience any bad side of town or
definitely
like
not at all. Didn't see. I mean, I can't think of a single thing that felt dangerous or hostile. We saw maybe one homeless person in Tokyo. He was a nice guy. None of that. Nothing to worry about, even at nighttime. Walking up and down, we went to different restaurants. We went to one place that was like a ramen shop, if you will. Bought a huge bowl of whatever ramen that had amazing sprouts and veggies and meat and all sorts of stuff. And it was massive, and it was piping hot and perfectly seasoned. And it was like maybe $4. And we're in there, and it's all these young men that probably just got off work, and they're all chowing down too. And delicious food. And of course, again, convenience stores and all that. So I'm trying to think of, well, I guess I do want to mention this again, was the kindness. There was, along the way, there was 4 or 5 times where we were the confused Americans, unsure of where to go or what was next, and people went out of their way. When we were one of the stations, I think maybe getting into Kyoto, we were a little confused on how to get on a specific train. And we go up to the kiosk that's like the help desk. And instead of him sitting at the desk to tell us where to go, he turned off the sign. He closed down his little kiosk, came out and said, "Come with me." And he physically led us there. He walked us 5 minutes with a smile on his face, got us to the exact place where we needed to be, showed us exactly what train and what time it would be there. And then he went back. And so in America, the person at the help desk will give you directions, but they're not going to shut down their help desk to make
Escort
sure.
you.
Yeah, it was amazing. And that happened 3 or 4 times. One little restaurant we went to, the people went above and beyond to show us things to do the next day and where we could go. And another thing was interesting. We went to a few places where the owners of the restaurant or the establishment, they wanted to take pictures with us. They ask us, "Oh, can we take a picture of you?" And we're thinking, "Oh, you want, our phone?" And we 3 get together, and, "Oh, you're nice and taking a picture of us." No, they actually wanted to be in the picture with us.
Yeah.
And that was very endearing. This happened with an elderly couple in a cafe. It happened with these 3 young men that ran a deer bar where the main meat there was deer, which was pretty interesting. Venison. Yeah, people wanted to have pictures with us and engage with us. And
what a nice memory, too.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Got a picture of the elder couple. We were joking, like grandma and grandpa. We have no clue what their names were.
Yeah.
But they wanted and they pulled out their cell phones and they got pictures with us too, so that they could have it.
That's so fun.
It was, and we're just like, do y'all do this with every American? Like, or I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the big thing. Safety, welcome, endearing. You've got the dichotomy of Tokyo and the lights and the action and the anime and the bawdy side, and then the idyllic traditional side of the outskirts and the smaller towns and the cities and Kyoto, and so much more I didn't get to see. That's the thing, is how can you I feel like Japan, though, if there's any country that you can see a lot of it in just a couple weeks, it's Japan, right? Because you can travel quickly on the Shinkansen, but truly you need a month at the very least to see all of it. We didn't get to go to Okinawa, but that certainly would be something that would be on my list.
Yeah. Wow. Even like it's tough going like anywhere, We spent like 10 days in Costa Rica, and it's like we did a lot, but we didn't like in the scope of like the country and all the things that you could do. So, but I feel like your birthday trip was quite the adventure. Very robust itinerary.
Did you have best birthday trip? I think. I don't think anything tops it.
Yeah, it'd be hard. Did you have most of that planned? I know like the different destinations, because we talk a lot about. We have like an itinerary of ideas of things that we want to do, but it's okay to kind of like deviate. Was everything like on there that you kind of spoke about, like the main points of like this was planned, or was anything like
most of it was planned, and I will shout out my good friend Whit Crosby again because he is a great planner. He any trip we go on, he does his research and he wants to find out what are the good things are. And I'm more of a uh I like to look up the highlights, but I'm kind of just there for the ride. And so it was great to have he planned out some amazing things, and he found these onsens, and he looked up Nikko and all these places. He really he does a good job when he travels. And so, yeah, I just got to tag along, and I didn't have the stress of having to worry. Now, there was stress, especially when we get there. Figuring out the train system and the transportation system there's a level of anxiety because mainly, I mean, the characters look so different. But if you just wait a minute, the English will pop up once the characters are off the screen. And once you get used to it after 2 or 3 days, then like on the way back, I came back from Kyoto. They stayed there. I made it back to Tokyo, and I went through 3 different train stations and had zero issue. And I mean, it was easy. So you spend a few days there and you're comfortable and you can figure it out. And you do realize everyone speaks English, and it's very much not catered for us, but it's very easy for us. And so, yeah, it was easy. No real planning for me. But shout out to my buddy Whit.
Yeah. What a great trip together, Whit. Good job.
Yeah.
Yep. Can't wait to go back and can't wait for the next trip.
Anything notable happen on the way back? Did you mention where you flew out of?
We flew out of New York, and I flew back into New York City.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember what the layover was or what the stop on the way back was.
So how'd you get to New York?
I flew up there from Myrtle Beach. Whit lives in New York.
So you took,
and it's from Myrtle, it's, $200 and a couple hours so it's easy. Definitely on the way back though, the long flights are rough. And you can only watch so many. I think I watched like Waterworld and all the Mad Max movies. They had a great selection of movies, that's for sure. But you can only watch so much. And as a tall person as well, even having the aisle seat, being cramped up is rough. So the flight there seemed easier, maybe because of the anticipation,
right?
And then coming back is like the dread.
Coming back is always just a different, even if it's the same time, it just feels longer.
Yeah.
You're like,
What airline did you fly?
When we got over there, it was it Canada Air or Japan? I think we were on Canada Air for one of the flights. Maybe another one was Japan Air. I don't really quite remember. It wasn't Delta or it wasn't our, United or whatever. It was a foreign
airline.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for walking us through your Japan trip. If we can ever get you into Japan, I'd love to go.
I would recommend it. The most pricey thing might be the flight. It's pretty affordable, at least now, and very safe and easy. And yeah, I definitely want to go back. It's on the bucket list, and I maybe mentioned, but it's definitely the only country I've been to where I would feel comfortable living there. And yeah, which says a lot as an American, especially nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all the things you said about it being like very structured and like everything's deliberate. I am a structured person, so I feel like I would really enjoy it. Just aesthetically.
Yeah.
I will say, and I'm, this is going out to people like me. If you're going to go to Japan, be very respectful. Lately, I've seen there's some videos of influencers will go there and they'll get on the train and start blasting music. It's like there are people that travel and bring their obnoxiousness. And with Japan, there's been a rise of intentional obnoxiousness, and the Japanese people are not getting fed up with it, but there's some pushback I've seen. We didn't experience anything like that, but yeah, whoever goes to Japan, understand that it's a very deep and old culture and society that should be taken seriously. And just because we live in the modern era of TikTok and Instagram, um, doesn't mean that every other place in the world is as, Tokyo they have so much anime and manga and all that stuff, but you still not everything there is entertainment.
Right.
So yeah, people be respectful there for sure. Don't ruin Japan, and that's something I had to tell myself and learn.
Right.
Absolutely. Always need the reminder, you
Yep.
know, and we appreciate it.
Cool.
Before we wrap up, do you want to share again where people can find you?
Yes, so I am on Facebook as Marsh Deane. I'm old school, not on TikTok. I am on Instagram as well, Marshy Deane, MarshYdeane. And I'm going to try to put a little more emphasis onto YouTube, Adventures with Marsh. So I love to share heritage and adventures and places that most people cannot go to. I try to share not only the places, but the deep history and the heritage and the stories behind it. I try to put a lot into it. I do mostly long form content, which isn't so viral nowadays, but I don't care. So if y'all are interested in hearing me ramble about things, find me there.
Absolutely. Adventures with Marsh on YouTube.
Yep. Thanks so much.
Thank y'all.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, that's it for this week, you guys. Thank you so much for listening. Plugging our socials, we have Temporary Locals on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram at Temporary Locals Podcast. You can find Jared on Instagram at Rover_Stover and on YouTube just at Rover Stover. I, Megan, am on all the things. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook at mego.goes.global. With that, if you guys enjoyed the episode, enjoyed hearing from Marsh, go ahead and leave us a comment. Tell us what you liked. If you'd like us to have him back on again, leave us a review. We'd truly, truly appreciate it. And with that,
I'm Jared,
I'm Megan. Thanks for exploring with us.
and be a local anywhere you go.